Captain Marcus Chen stood near the viewing port of Zenith 7, watching distant stars flicker against the darkness of space. His dress uniform felt too tight around his shoulders. He was a soldier, not a diplomat, but Earth needed representatives at this gathering, and somehow his name had been chosen. "Nervous?" asked Dr. Sarah Kim, Earth's chief xenobiologist. She adjusted her tablet, reviewing notes about the various alien species attending tonight's reception. "Just thinking," Marcus replied. 3 months ago, I was leading patrols on the outer colonies. Now I'm supposed to shake hands with beings who've been traveling the stars for thousands of years." Sarah smiled. "We all feel that way. Humanity is the new kid at school. Everyone's watching to see what we'll do." The reception hall was enormous, designed to accommodate beings of vastly different sizes and biologies. Crystal pillars rose toward a domed ceiling that displayed a holographic view of the galaxy. Representatives from dozens of species mingled in groups, their conversations a mixture of translated languages and unusual sounds. Marcus had studied the files. The tall, crystalline beings were the Zephrani, masters of energy manipulation. The floating spheres surrounded by rings of light were the Ormorians, synthetic life forms older than human civilization. But the species drawing the most attention tonight were the Valkreth. They looked like enormous insects standing upright, their bodies covered in smooth chitin that gleamed like polished obsidian. Each stood nearly 7 feet tall, with 4 arms and compound eyes that reflected rainbow patterns in the light. Their queen, Sarathix, wore ceremonial armor decorated with precious metals. "She's younger than most of their previous rulers," Sarah whispered, noticing Marcus's gaze. "Only 30 cycles old. That's like being in your early 20s for them. She's considered a radical by their standards." The evening proceeded with speeches and formal introductions. Marcus shook many hands, claws, and tentacles. Most aliens treated him politely but distantly, as if he were a curiosity rather than an equal. He understood. Humanity had only achieved faster-than-light travel 15 years ago. These civilizations had been exploring space for millennia. Then came the moment that changed everything. Queen Sarathix approached the central platform, her 4 arms held in a gesture that Marcus's translator identified as respectful greeting. When she spoke, her voice came through the translation device as smooth and articulate. "Honored guests," she began. "For 10,000 cycles, the Valkreth Empire has maintained our traditions. We have allied with species similar to ourselves, orderly, hierarchical, predictable. Tonight, I propose we break this pattern." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Several Valkreth in the Queen's own entourage shifted uncomfortably. "I propose a formal alliance with humanity," Sarathix continued. "They are young, yes. Unpredictable, certainly. But they possess something remarkable, the ability to adapt rapidly, to question established rules, to find solutions where others see only problems. These qualities could strengthen our empire." Marcus felt every eye in the room turn toward the human delegation. Sarah gripped his arm tightly. "This is huge," she breathed. "The Valkreth Empire controls 1/4 of the known galaxy. If they ally with us—" But not everyone was pleased. 5 Valkreth warriors stepped forward from the Queen's own royal guard. Their armor was darker than the others, marked with symbols Marcus didn't recognize. The lead warrior spoke, his translated voice harsh. "Queen Sarathix, you dishonor our ancestors. Humans are children playing with technology they barely understand. They have no culture of honor, no respect for hierarchy. This alliance would weaken us." "Commander Thexril," the Queen replied calmly. "Your objection is noted. However, the decision is mine to make." "Then you are unfit to make it," Thexril declared. The room went silent. Even Marcus, unfamiliar with Valkreth culture, understood that something terrible had just happened. "You challenge my right to rule?" Sarathix asked, her voice dangerously quiet. "We invoke the blade right," Thexerl said. 5 against 1, as is tradition when a monarch has lost their way. 5 curved blades appeared in the warrior's hands, each glowing with a faint energy field. The queen's loyal guards moved to intervene, but Serathix raised a hand to stop them. "I accept your challenge," she said with dignity. "Let it be witnessed." Everything happened too fast. The 5 warriors struck simultaneously, moving with terrifying speed. The queen raised her own blades, blocking 2 attacks, but she was outnumbered. One blade sliced toward her neck, another aimed for her heart. Marcus didn't think. He just moved. His military augmentations activated automatically, flooding his system with adrenaline and accelerating his perception. The world slowed down. He saw the trajectories of the blades, calculated angles, and launched himself forward. He crashed into Queen Serathix, knocking her aside. Pain exploded across his left shoulder as one blade caught him. Another sliced his forearm. A third grazed his ribs. His augmented bones prevented the blades from cutting deeper, but the energy fields burned like fire. Marcus heard shouting, the clash of metal, but his vision was blurring. He'd positioned himself between the queen and her attackers, and now loyal guards were finally engaging the traitors. Someone was screaming orders, energy weapons discharged with sharp cracks. He felt himself falling. Strong, chitinous arms caught him, the queen herself holding him with surprising gentleness. "Why?" he heard her voice, filled with confusion and something that might have been awe. "Why would you do this?" Marcus tried to answer, but darkness was closing in. He'd lost too much blood. His augmentations were working overtime to keep him alive, but it might not be enough. The last thing he saw before consciousness faded was Queen Serathix's compound eyes staring down at him, reflecting his pale face in 1,000 tiny facets. She was saying something in her own language, words the translator couldn't capture. Marcus woke to the sound of machines humming softly around him. His entire body ached, but it was a distant pain, muffled by medication. He tried to move and immediately regretted it. "Easy there, Captain," a familiar voice said. Dr. Sarah Kim appeared beside his bed, her face tired but relieved. "You've been out for 3 days. Your body needed time to heal." "The Queen?" Marcus's voice came out rough and dry. "She's fine. You saved her life." Sarah handed him a cup of water with a straw. "You're a hero, Marcus. Also possibly insane, but definitely a hero." Marcus drank carefully, his memories slowly returning. The reception, the assassination attempt, 5 glowing blades coming at the queen, his decision to intervene. "What happened to the attackers?" he asked. "Dead. The loyal guards killed them all. It turns out there was a whole conspiracy, traditionalists who wanted to stop the queen's reforms." Sarah pulled up a chair. "But Marcus, you did something that's causing a massive situation. You need to understand what you've gotten yourself into." Before she could explain, the door opened. A Valkreth diplomat entered. Smaller than the warriors, but carrying himself with obvious authority. His chiton was a lighter shade, marked with intricate patterns. "Captain Chen," the diplomat said, his translated voice formal. "I am Ambassador Krelix. I must speak with you about the consequences of your actions." Marcus tried to sit up straighter, wincing at the pain. "I just reacted. I saw someone about to be killed and I stopped it." "Yes, and in doing so, you invoked one of our most sacred traditions." Krelix's 4 hands gestured in what the translator identified as emphasis. In Valkreth culture, one who takes blades meant for royalty becomes bound to them by honor. We call it the Shield-Bearer's Oath. It is ancient, dating back thousands of cycles. "I didn't know about any oath," Marcus protested. "Intention does not matter. Action does." The ambassador's compound eyes seemed to study Marcus carefully. "No outsider has ever invoked this tradition before? Certainly no human. Your people are so new to the galactic community that most Valkreth Do not even understand your culture. Sarah leaned forward. What does this oath mean exactly? It means Captain Chen is now bound to Queen Serathix by honor. In traditional terms, he would become part of her personal guard, sworn to protect her with his life. But these are not traditional circumstances. Krelix paused. The Queen has requested that Captain Chen remain as her personal liaison once he recovers. She wishes him to help bridge the gap between our species. Marcus felt overwhelmed. I'm not a diplomat. I'm a soldier. Perhaps that is why she wants you, Krelix suggested. You saw her as a person worth saving, not as a political piece on a game board. That is rare in her position. After the ambassador left, Sarah stayed with Marcus, filling him in on what had happened during his unconscious days. The 5 traitors had been part of a larger faction opposing the Queen's reforms. Their execution had been swift, but political tensions remained high. Your superiors back on Earth are thrilled, Sarah said quietly. They want you to accept the Queen's offer. Humanity needs this alliance desperately. The Valkreth control resources and territory we can only dream of. So I'm supposed to be a political tool? Marcus felt bitter. You're supposed to be what you've always been, someone who does the right thing. Sarah stood up. But Marcus, there's something else. Intelligence reports suggest more assassination attempts are planned. The conservatives won't stop just because 5 warriors failed. Over the next 2 days, Marcus regained his strength. The Valkreth bioregeneration technology was remarkable. His wounds, which should have taken months to heal, were already closing. He could walk, though carefully. On the 3rd day after waking, Queen Serathix herself came to visit. She arrived without ceremony, accompanied by only 2 guards. Up close, without the formal armor, she looked different. Younger somehow, though Marcus knew that was probably his human perception projecting onto alien features. Captain Chen, she said, and he noticed her translator was set to a more casual tone than the formal speech she'd used at the reception. I wanted to thank you personally. You already thanked me, Your Majesty, Marcus replied, unsure of proper protocol. Please, when we are in private, call me Serathix. She moved closer, her compound eyes reflecting the medical bay's lights. I have spent my entire life surrounded by protocol and formality. What you did was not protocol, it was instinct, compassion. These are things I do not often encounter. I couldn't just stand there and watch you die, Marcus said simply. Most would have. Most did. Serathix's 4 hands moved in a gesture Marcus was beginning to recognize as sadness. Even my own guards hesitated, bound by tradition and rules about when they could intervene in a blade-right challenge. But you did not know our rules, so you simply acted. They talked for over an hour. Marcus learned that Serathix was indeed young by Valkreth standards, chosen for her intelligence and vision, but isolated by her radical ideas. She wanted to reform the empire, to open it up to new possibilities, but every step forward met resistance from those who preferred the old ways. Your species fascinates me, Serathix admitted. Humans reach the stars so quickly. You adapt, you question, you refuse to accept that things must always be done the way they were done before. These qualities frighten many, but I believe they are exactly what the galaxy needs. Marcus found himself warming to her. Beneath the alien exterior was a person carrying an enormous burden, trying to do what she thought was right, despite opposition from all sides. I'll stay, he said finally. I'll be your liaison. But I can't promise I'll be good at diplomacy. Good, Serathix replied, and if Valkreth could smile, Marcus thought she might be doing so. I do not need another diplomat. I need someone who will be honest with me. Just as she stood to leave, alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. Red emergency lights began flashing. A voice over the intercom announced a station-wide alert. Ambassador Krelix burst through the door, his calm demeanor shattered. Your Majesty, Captain, we have a critical situation. A bomb has been discovered in the station's core reactor. If it detonates, 50,000 beings will die. Can it be disarmed? Serathix demanded. Yes, but it requires specialized codes. Valkreth military encryption. Krelix's voice was grim. Only you have the authority to access those codes, Your Majesty. But we have less than 48 hours. Marcus stood up, ignoring his body's protests. He looked at Serathix, seeing his own determination reflected in her alien features. Then we'd better get started, he said. The Queen nodded, already moving toward the door. Marcus followed, knowing that whatever test he'd just agreed to was about to become far more complicated than he'd imagined. The station's command center buzzed with frantic activity. Technicians worked at holographic displays while security officers coordinated evacuation protocols. Marcus and Queen Serathix stood before a large screen showing the bomb's location, deep in the reactor core, surrounded by radiation shielding. We cannot simply evacuate, Serathix said, studying the data. 50,000 beings cannot be moved in 48 hours. Many species require specialized life support during transport. We would lose thousands in the attempt. Commander Vixara, head of station security, highlighted several points on the display. The device is sophisticated. Whoever planted it knew exactly where to place it for maximum damage. This was not the work of amateurs. The same people behind the assassination attempt? Marcus asked. Almost certainly, Ambassador Krelix confirmed. But we cannot find them. They have covered their tracks expertly. Serathix's compound eyes flickered with determination. Then we hunt them ourselves. Captain Chen and I will investigate while your teams continue technical analysis of the bomb. Vixara looked uncertain. Your Majesty, with respect, you should be in a secure location. Let professionals handle this. The encryption requires my personal authorization codes, Serathix replied firmly. I must understand what we are dealing with. Captain Chen saved my life once. I trust him to help me again. Marcus felt the weight of that trust. His body was still healing, but he pushed the discomfort aside. Where do we start? They began in the maintenance tunnels where the bomb had been discovered. Marcus examined the access points, while Serathix interfaced with the station's computer systems through a neural link that seemed natural for her species. The security logs have been altered, she said after several minutes. But whoever did this was not perfect. There are small inconsistencies in the timestamps. Marcus knelt beside scorch marks on the tunnel wall. These are fresh. Someone used a plasma cutter here within the last week. He pulled out a small scanner from the security kit they'd been given. I'm picking up trace elements, chemicals used in Valkreth military equipment. Which means the conspirators have access to our military supplies, Serathix said grimly. The corruption runs deeper than we thought. They worked through the morning, following clues through the massive station. As they moved through different sections, Marcus began to see patterns. The conspirators had needed help from multiple species, someone to disable sensors here, another to forge credentials there. During a brief rest in an observation lounge, Serathix surprised Marcus by asking about Earth. What is your world like? She asked, genuine curiosity in her translated voice. Crowded, beautiful, complicated, Marcus replied, gazing at the stars beyond the window. We nearly destroyed ourselves several times before we reached space. Wars, environmental disasters, all the mistakes young civilizations make. But you survived. You adapted. Serathix's 4 hands moved in a gesture Marcus had learned meant thoughtful consideration. This is why I proposed our alliance. The Valkreth Empire has been stable for 10,000 cycles, but stability can become stagnation. We have forgotten how to change. Change is scary, Marcus said. I get why your people resist it. Fear is logical, but allowing fear to prevent necessary growth is not. She turned her compound eyes toward him. You were afraid when those blades came toward me, yes? Terrified, Marcus admitted. Yet you acted anyway. This is the human quality I most admire, the ability to be afraid but move forward regardless. Their conversation was interrupted by a message from Ambassador Krellix. He had discovered something important in the financial records. Several high-ranking officials from different species had received large payments from an unknown source over the past 6 months. "Follow the money," Marcus muttered. "Basic investigation technique." They traced the payments to a trading consortium that operated on the edges of legal commerce. When they arrived at the consortium's offices on the station, they found signs of recent evacuation, deleted files, abandoned equipment. But Serathix's technical skills proved invaluable. She recovered fragments of deleted communications. What they revealed was shocking. "This conspiracy reaches beyond the Valkreth conservatives," she said, reading the recovered data. "There are representatives from the Zephrani banking clans, Ormorian industrial groups, even some human corporate interests." Marcus felt sick. "People from my own species are involved?" "Not Earth's government," Serathix clarified. "But there are always those who profit from chaos. These groups benefit from the current power structures. They see humanity's rapid rise as a threat to their established positions." The pieces were falling into place. The assassination attempt was never just about Valkreth tradition, it was about preventing change that would disrupt profitable systems across multiple civilizations. "They want to keep everyone in their assigned places," Marcus said. "Humans as the newcomers who don't matter. Your people locked in old traditions, everyone predictable and controllable." "Precisely." Serathix's tone was cold with anger. "And they are willing to kill 50,000 innocent beings to maintain that control." Suddenly, the station's alarms blared again. Marcus's communicator crackled with Commander Vixara's urgent voice. "Captain Chen, Your Majesty, we have multiple hostiles converging on your position. The conspirators know you are getting close. They are coming to stop you." Marcus looked around the consortium office. One exit, limited cover, and they were outnumbered. His military training kicked in immediately. "How many?" he asked. "At least 15 armed individuals. Various species. They will reach you in 3 minutes." Serathix moved beside Marcus, her 4 arms flexing as biological weapons emerged from compartments in her carapace. Curved blades similar to those her attackers had used at the reception. "Can you fight?" she asked him. Marcus checked his sidearm and felt his augmentations responding to the adrenaline in his system. His wounds ached but held. "I can fight. Then we make our stand here or we run for the maintenance tunnels. The tunnels give us more options but also more places for ambush." Marcus studied the office layout, his tactical mind working rapidly. "The tunnels. We need to reach the reactor level anyway to disarm that bomb. If we can fight through them and get the codes entered, we solve 2 problems at once." "Agreed." Serathix moved toward the back exit. "Stay close to me, Captain." "Your species is durable but not invincible." They ran into the maintenance tunnels just as the conspirators breached the office entrance. Energy weapons discharged behind them, scorching the walls. Marcus returned fire, covering their retreat while Serathix navigated the complex tunnel system with impressive speed. The chase was on. They descended level by level, closer to the reactor core. The conspirators pursued relentlessly. Marcus and Serathix worked together instinctively. She would use her height and multiple arms to create barriers with debris while he provided covering fire. When his weapon overheated, she defended him with her blades. When she needed to interface with a locked door, he held off their pursuers. They fought through 3 ambush points, taking down several attackers but sustaining damage. Marcus took a glancing energy blast to his shoulder. Serathix had a crack in her carapace that leaked blue blood. Finally, they reached the reactor level. The bomb sat in its housing, timer counting down. 23 hours remaining. But they were surrounded. The remaining conspirators emerged from multiple tunnel entrances, weapons trained on them. The lead conspirator, a Zafrani crystalline being, spoke through a translator. "You have complicated our plans, Queen Serathix, but it ends here. The bomb has additional protections you have not yet discovered." Serathix approached the device carefully, beginning her analysis. Marcus kept his weapon ready, knowing they were in a desperate position. Then Serathix looked up, her compound eyes wide. "Captain Chen," she said quietly, "the encryption is more complex than reported. To disarm this, I must create a neural link with the device, but the feedback could overload my brain. It might kill me." Marcus felt cold dread. "There has to be another way." "There is," she said slowly. "Your military augmentations include neural interface capabilities, yes? If you linked with me while I link with the device, we could share the load. But human-Valkreth neural connection has never been attempted. We do not know what would happen." The Zafrani laughed, a sound like chiming crystals. "Perfect. You have two choices. Die from the bomb or die attempting to stop it. Either way, the alliance fails." Marcus looked at Serathix. In her alien features, he saw fear but also determination. She was willing to try. "How do we do this?" he asked. She extended one of her hands toward him. "Physical contact. Then we initiate the link simultaneously." Marcus holstered his weapon and took her hand. Her chitin was smooth and warm, nothing like he expected. "If this kills us both," he said, "at least we tried." "If this kills us both," Serathix replied, "perhaps others will continue what we started." They initiated the neural link together. The sensation was beyond anything Marcus had ever experienced. Suddenly, he was not just himself. He was seeing through compound eyes, feeling with 4 arms, perceiving the world through senses he had never possessed. Pheromones carried meaning. Electromagnetic fields became visible. His mind expanded and fractured simultaneously. And through it all, he felt Serathix, her thoughts, her emotions, her very essence mixing with his own. Together, they reached toward the bomb's encryption. The neural link was like being caught in a storm of consciousness. Marcus felt his human mind colliding with something vast and ancient, the collective memory of the Valkreth species flowing through Serathix. For a moment, he thought he would drown in it. Then he felt her presence, distinct and clear, reaching toward him like an anchor. "Stay with me, Marcus." Her thoughts came directly into his mind, bypassing language entirely. "Focus on my voice. We do this together." Marcus struggled to orient himself. Through Serathix's compound eyes, he saw the world in facets, each one processing information independently. He felt her 4 arms, as if they were his own limbs. The bomb's encryption appeared before them, not as numbers, but as a living pattern of light and sound. Meanwhile, Serathix was experiencing human consciousness for the first time. Marcus's emotions hit her like physical forces, raw, chaotic, overwhelming. She felt his fear for her safety, his determination to protect, his guilt over past failures in war. Human feelings were so intense compared to the ordered emotional processing of her species. "Your mind is so loud," she thought to him, and he sensed her amazement rather than criticism. "Sorry," Marcus thought back. "We feel everything at full volume." Together they began unraveling the bomb's encryption. The conspirators had designed it to be impossible for one mind to process. The complexity would overload any single neural system. But 2 minds, working in perfect synchronization, could distribute the load. Marcus handled pattern recognition, his human brain excellent at seeing irregular sequences. Serathix processed the mathematical structures, her Valkreth mind designed for complex calculations. Where one struggled, the other compensated. The conspirators watched in growing alarm. The Zafrani leader raised his weapon, but before he could fire, station security burst into the chamber. Commander Vixara had tracked them and brought reinforcements. A firefight erupted around Marcus and Serathix, but they couldn't break concentration. The neural link demanded their complete focus. One moment of distraction could mean failure. Marcus felt Serathix's memories bleeding into his consciousness. He saw her childhood, if that was the right word, in the royal nursery, surrounded by tutors but isolated from peers. He felt her loneliness as she grew, too intelligent for her age group, too radical for the traditionalists. He experienced her fear when she became queen, knowing she had to change an empire that resisted change. Serathix, in turn, saw Marcus's past, his difficult childhood on Earth's overcrowded cities, his decision to join the military seeking purpose, the war on the outer colonies, where he followed orders that resulted in civilian casualties, the guilt that haunted him, the reason he questioned authority now. "You carry so much pain," Serathix's thoughts touched his gently. "So do you," Marcus replied, feeling the weight of her responsibilities. The encryption was breaking, they were close. But the feedback was intensifying. Marcus felt his augmentation straining, warning lights flashing in his neural interface. Serathix's biological systems were overheating, her body temperature rising dangerously. "Almost there," she thought through gritted determination. Around them, the firefight concluded. The conspirators were captured or dead. But Marcus and Serathix barely noticed. The final layer of encryption loomed before them, a massive knot of code that seemed impossible to untangle. Together, Marcus thought. On 3. They didn't need to count. Their minds were so synchronized that they acted as one, finding the pattern's weakness and exploiting it simultaneously. The encryption shattered, the bomb deactivated. The timer stopped with 17 hours remaining. But the neural link didn't disconnect. Marcus and Serathix collapsed together, their minds still intertwined. Medical teams rushed forward, scanning them both frantically. The connection between them pulsed like a living thing, refusing to sever. "Get them to medical now," Commander Vixara shouted. In the medical bay, human and Valkreth doctors worked together, trying to understand what had happened. The neural link had created permanent pathways between Marcus and Serathix's brains. Their neural patterns had adapted, changed at a fundamental level to maintain the connection. When they finally woke, hours later, the link was still there, weaker but persistent. Marcus could sense Serathix's emotional state like a quiet presence in the back of his mind. She could feel his consciousness, distinct from her own, but somehow connected. "What have we done?" Marcus asked aloud, staring at the medical readings. Dr. Sarah Kim looked both fascinated and concerned. "You've created something unprecedented, a permanent bridge between human and Valkreth neurology. The medical team has never seen anything like it." Ambassador Krelix entered the room, his manner grave. "This news is spreading rapidly across the station and beyond. Some see it as proof that true cooperation between species is possible. Others see it as an abomination." "What do you see it as?" Serathix asked quietly. The ambassador's 4 hands moved in a complex gesture. "I see it as change. Whether that is good or bad will depend on what you both do next." Over the following days, the political situation exploded. The conspirators' network was exposed. Dozens of arrests were made across multiple civilizations. But the discovery of the human-Valkreth neural bond became equally controversial. Marcus and Serathix spent time learning to live with their new connection. They could sense each other's emotions clearly now. And with practice, they could share specific thoughts when they focused. It was intimate in a way neither had expected, transcending the boundaries of their species. "I have never felt truly understood before," Serathix admitted one evening as they stood together in the observation lounge. "My people value order and hierarchy. Personal connection is secondary to duty. And I've always felt like an outsider, Marcus replied. Someone who didn't quite fit anywhere. But with you, I don't have to explain myself. You already know. Their moment was interrupted by an urgent message. Ambassador Krelix appeared on the communication screen, his compound eyes flickering with distress. Your Majesty, Captain Chen, we have received word from the Valkreth homeworld. The Empress Dowager has learned of the neural bond. She is displeased. Sarathix stiffened. My mother. She demands your immediate return to Kithera Prime for what she calls correction of this aberration. She is sending a fleet to escort you. They arrive in 3 days. Krelix paused. Your Majesty, the Empress Dowager has the authority to strip you of your title if she deems you unfit to rule. This bond with a human may be seen as evidence of such unfitness. Marcus felt fear spike through their connection. Not Sarathix's fear for herself, but her fear for what this meant for the Alliance, for the reforms she'd fought so hard to implement. I will return, Sarathix said firmly. I will face my mother and the High Court. I will not hide from the consequences of my choices. Then I'm coming with you, Marcus stated. Marcus, the Valkreth homeworld has never been visited by a human. You would be walking into the heart of an empire that may see you as a corrupting influence. I know. Marcus looked at her steadily. But we're connected now. I can feel what you're feeling. You're scared, and you're trying to face this alone like you've faced everything alone your whole life. But you don't have to anymore. Through their bond, Sarathix felt his absolute certainty. He would not be dissuaded. The Empress Dowager is formidable, she warned. She has ruled the Empire from behind the throne for 100 cycles. She crushed the last reform movement before I was born. If she decides to eliminate you, her guards will not hesitate as mine did. Then we'd better make sure she doesn't see me as a threat, Marcus said. We saved 50,000 lives together. We exposed a conspiracy that reached across multiple civilizations. That has to count for something. Ambassador Krelix looked between them, his compound eyes reflecting worry. Captain Chen, if you accompany the Queen to Kithera Prime, you will be the first human to ever set foot on our homeworld. The political implications are immense. Good, Marcus replied. Maybe it's time for immense political implications. Sarathix reached out with one of her hands, and Marcus took it without hesitation. Through their bond, understanding flowed, fear mixed with hope, determination mixed with uncertainty, but above all, a sense that they would face whatever came next together. Very well, Sarathix said. We go to Kithera Prime, together. The journey would take 6 days through faster-than-light travel. 6 days to prepare for the trial that awaited them. 6 days before Marcus would face an empire that might see him as the enemy of everything they held sacred. Through their neural bond, Marcus felt Sarathix's resolve strengthening. Whatever the Empress Dowager had planned, they would meet it as they had met every challenge so far, not as separate beings from different worlds, but as something new, something that frightened those who feared change, and perhaps something that could change the galaxy. The journey to Kithera Prime passed in a blur of preparation. Marcus trained with Sarathix daily, learning Valkreth combat techniques while teaching her human strategies. Their neural bond made the training extraordinary. They could anticipate each other's movements before they happened, flowing together like a single organism. Dr. Sarah Kim accompanied them, serving as Earth's official observer. She spent hours coaching Marcus on diplomatic protocols, though they both knew his strength was not in careful words, but in honest action. Remember, you're representing all of humanity, Sarah reminded him the night before arrival. Everything you do will be watched and judged. No pressure, then, Marcus replied with a weak smile. Through their bond, he felt Sarathix's amusement mixed with her growing anxiety. Tomorrow they would face her mother, the true power behind the Valkreth throne. Kithera Prime was overwhelming. As their ship descended through the atmosphere, Marcus stared at a planet-spanning city of biological architecture. Massive structures grew from the ground, like enormous trees, their surfaces crawling with organized movement. Billions of Valkreth lived in perfect hierarchical order. "It's beautiful," Marcus whispered. "It's a cage," Serathix replied quietly through their bond. "Beautiful, yes, but designed to keep everyone in their assigned place." They landed at the Grand Chrysalis, the seat of imperial power. Thousands of Valkreth lined the approach, some curious, many hostile. Marcus was the first human to ever walk these streets, and he felt the weight of countless compound eyes upon him. The Empress Dowager received them in the Hall of Ancestors, a vast chamber where holographic images of past rulers floated like ghosts. She sat on a throne of living chitin, ancient and imposing. Her carapace was marked with scars from countless battles, and her compound eyes held the cold calculation of a ruler who had crushed rebellions for a century. "Daughter," the Empress said, her voice carrying absolute authority. "You have brought shame upon our house." Serathix stood tall despite Marcus feeling her fear through their bond. "Mother, I have brought innovation. There is a difference." "Innovation?" The Empress gestured dismissively with her four arms. "You have bonded yourself to an alien, created an unnatural connection that violates the purity of our species. The High Court demands you prove your fitness to rule, or you must abdicate." Marcus remained silent as they had planned. This was Serathix's battle to fight first. "I will not sever the bond," Serathix declared. "It represents the future I envision for our empire, true connection with other species, not merely coexistence." Murmurs rippled through the assembled court members. The Empress's compound eyes flickered with something that might have been anger or disappointment. "Then you leave me no choice. You must face the trial of worthiness. If you fail, you will be stripped of all titles and exiled." Before Serathix could respond, Marcus stepped forward. Through their bond, he felt her surprise and worry, but he had made his decision. "Empress Dowager," he said, his voice steady. "May I speak?" The chamber fell silent. The audacity of a human addressing the Empress directly was unprecedented. "You may," she said after a long pause, her tone dangerous. Marcus chose his words carefully. "I've felt what your daughter feels through our bond. I've experienced fragments of her memories, her thoughts. I understand something about your species that most humans never could." "And what is that, human?" "You're afraid," Marcus said simply. "Your empire has thrived on order and predictability for 10,000 cycles. My people represent chaos, change, the unknown. We don't fit into your hierarchies because we refuse to accept that things must always be done the way they were done before." The Empress's posture shifted dangerously. "You speak of fear as if it were weakness." "No," Marcus replied. "Fear is logical and natural. But I've learned something in my short life. The things we fear most are often the things we need most. Your daughter isn't weakened by our bond. She's stronger. We saved 50,000 lives together, stopped a conspiracy that reached across civilizations. We did it because we could share the burden that would have destroyed either of us alone." "Pretty words," the Empress said coldly. "But words are easy. Proof is harder." "Then let me prove it," Serathix interrupted. "I accept the trial of worthiness. And I request that Captain Chen fight beside me, as is the right of any Valkreth facing such a trial." The chamber erupted in protests. The Empress raised a hand for silence. "You would have this human as your partner in a sacred trial?" she asked. "He has already proven himself my shield-bearer. The bond between us makes him part of my strength, not separate from it." Serathix moved closer to Marcus, her confidence flowing through their connection. "If the Empire cannot accept this, then perhaps I am not meant to rule it." The Empress studied them both for a long moment. Very well. 3 of my champion warriors will face you both in the proving grounds. If you prevail, I will accept that this bond has value. If you fail, you will both be exiled from Valkreth space forever. The proving grounds were ancient, carved from living rock beneath the grand chrysalis. Thousands of Valkreth gathered in the galleries to witness the trial. Marcus and Serathix stood in the center of the arena, their neural bond humming with shared determination. 3 warriors entered from the opposite side, veterans of countless battles, their carapaces scarred and deadly. Each carried weapons that glowed with energy, designed to cut through even reinforced armor. "Ready?" Serathix asked through their bond. "Always," Marcus replied. The battle began. The champions attacked with terrifying coordination, but Marcus and Serathix moved as one entity. Through their bond, they anticipated attacks before they came, covered each other's weaknesses, and exploited openings simultaneously. Marcus's human unpredictability combined with Serathix's Valkreth precision created something the champions had never encountered. When one champion struck high at Serathix, Marcus was already moving low to sweep the warrior's legs. When 2 attacked Marcus together, Serathix's 4 arms created a whirlwind of defensive blocks that gave him time to counter. They flowed around each other like water, their different fighting styles merging into something greater than either alone. The crowd watched in stunned silence as the impossible unfolded before them. The first champion fell, unable to adapt to their synchronized assault. The second lasted longer, but eventually succumbed to exhaustion, trying to defend against attacks coming from angles that seemed impossible. The third fought brilliantly, nearly separating Marcus and Serathix. But their bond held strong. In the final exchange, Marcus took a blade strike to his side, protecting Serathix, while she used the opening to disarm the champion. They stood victorious, Marcus bleeding but alive, Serathix's carapace cracked but unbroken. The Empress Dowager descended from her observation platform, her compound eyes unreadable. She approached Marcus, who struggled to stay standing despite his wound. "You took a blade meant for my daughter," she said quietly. "Again?" "I always will," Marcus replied through gritted teeth. The Empress turned to Serathix. "I cannot deny what I have witnessed. The bond makes you stronger, not weaker. But, daughter, you must understand, accepting this means accepting that our empire can never return to what it was." "I know, Mother," Serathix said softly. "Change is frightening. But stagnation is death." The Empress was silent for a long moment. Then she made her proclamation to the assembled court. "Queen Serathix has proven her worthiness. However, she can no longer hold the traditional succession. I create a new title for her, Queenkeeper of the Outreach. She will expand our understanding of other species, beginning with humanity. She will have full authority to forge alliances and explore new possibilities." It was both recognition and exile, freedom to pursue her vision but removed from the direct line of power. Serathix understood immediately. It was the best her mother could offer without destroying centuries of tradition. "I accept," Serathix said. 6 months later, Marcus and Serathix stood together on a new station built at the border between human and Valkreth space. Through the viewing port, they watched as the first exchange of scholars arrived, humans eager to learn from Valkreth technology, Valkreth curious about human culture. The neural bond had become natural to them now, a constant presence neither wanted to lose. They had learned to share thoughts and feelings at will, creating a partnership that transcended the boundaries of their species. "Do you ever regret it?" Serathix asked, watching the ship's dock. "Your instinct to shield me changed your entire life." Marcus smiled, feeling their bond pulse with shared contentment. "I followed my instincts then. I'm following them now. Then we follow them together," Sarathix replied in perfect English, a language she had learned through their connection. They stood side by side, human and Valkreth, looking toward a future neither species could have imagined alone. The galaxy was vast and full of beings who feared change, who wanted everything to remain predictable and controllable. But Marcus and Sarathix had proven something important, that sometimes the most human thing to do was see past what someone was to what they could become. And sometimes the strongest bonds were forged not despite differences, but because of them. Behind them, the station hummed with new possibilities. Ahead of them, the stars waited. Together, they would explore them all. The end.